Do I need to introduce myself? I'm Adriann. I went a little wild on my PowerPoint, but anyway, hi, welcome. Thanks for coming to my presentation. So I guess I'll start with my academic journey. So yeah, I didn't start out at Rutgers, in case you were wondering why we have this little hockey puck now that did not replace the Scarlet Knight. This is Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. So as a Chinese person, my parents gave me 3 choices for my career options, and it was doctor, lawyer, or engineer. So I picked engineer, and it didn't work out. I spent like 3 weeks at RPI before I realized that like engineering is just really bad. Sorry to anyone who's an engineering major in this, but it just wasn't for me. So I ended up not staying at RPI, transferred over to good old Rutgers after a little bit. So that didn't really fix all of my problems. I was still very confused when I began my college career for real this time at Rutgers. I had no idea what I wanted to major in now that engineering was off the table. Definitely didn't want to be a doctor or a lawyer either. So my options were, I don't know, everything else, I guess. I literally looked at the School of Arts and Sciences, like major offerings, which is like 70 majors or something. And I like categorized it all into a list of like majors that I would be interested in doing, and it's like possible for me to pursue, and like majors that I would be interested in, but I can't actually do, like chemistry. And then, you know, other majors that I didn't even care about. So in the end, I ended up choosing psychology and cognitive science. I graduated in 2019, so I'm an old lady now. And it was pretty great. I'm really happy with the majors that I chose, even though it took like such a long time for me to figure it all out. Let's see. I guess the beginning of my discovery for like what I'm interested in studying started when I was like, I don't know, I just like thought to myself, I really like psychology. There isn't really any reason for me not to pursue it. And the only thing like stopping me from pursuing what I enjoyed was just like that stigma against like mental health. That's like within the like Asian culture. So once I like overcame that, it was, you know, easy. And it helps that I tried to gain experiences in the field of like psychology and cognitive science, just to like double check and make sure that I actually really liked it before I like dedicated the rest of my life to it. So that's where the UBHC Adult Inpatient Unit internship came in. And for those of you who don't know, the psychology department has an internship for like, I think it's like a 400 level course or something, where it is an internship for class credit. And you apply, you may or may not be given a placement. In my case, I was lucky enough to get something during my junior year, and it was this clinical placement in UBHC, which stands for University of Behavioral Healthcare. It's a psychiatric hospital in the corner of Bush campus, like behind Library of Science and Medicine. You don't really end up in that corner unless you're hospitalized. So hopefully you guys don't go there anytime soon. But the internship was like such a great experience because I had exposure to all these different kinds of mental illnesses. Everyone who went into that inpatient unit were people who were acutely mentally ill. Every single one of them was like suicidal, homicidal, and or psychotic. And they stayed in the hospital for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, until they got better. So having that like one-on-one experience with these patients, and eventually I actually got to a point where I was able to give group therapy to the patients. It was just really eye-opening because like there's no other way for you to get that kind of experience during your undergraduate career. Um, Typically, they want you to have some sort of degree, at least a bachelor's. So I was just very grateful to get this internship. And it made me realize that, like, yes, psychology and cognitive science are definitely things that I want to pursue. I'm really interested, especially in severe mental illnesses. So I knew that like I needed to get some more experience in other like parts of psych, like besides the clinical therapy-ish experience. So I did research. Oh, that's the tortellini coming. And so I realized that like I like severe mental illnesses, particularly schizophrenia. And at one point in my like search for a major, I was also like, how about optometry? That didn't pan out, but I'm still interested in vision. I just don't want to be like lasering people's eyeballs, you know? So I do schizophrenia and vision research. In case you don't know what schizophrenia is, it's a serious mental disorder in which people, what does this say? Interpret reality abnormally. So that is presented in like delusions, hallucinations, other not fun stuff. So there were a couple of ways that I got my research opportunities through Cognitive Science Club. So, you know, guys, get involved in your clubs. So when I was the event planner for the Cognitive Science Club, I was like helping the club do this panel, and we invited Dr. Steven Silverstein to talk about his professional career journey, whatever. So he did that. I spoke to him afterwards, and we realized that our like research interests really align, like weirdly, like really, really close. He's also really interested in schizophrenia and vision. So that was really helpful. And then my other research experience that I got while I was at Rutgers was with Thomas. So he worked in the laboratory of vision research. Again, the club really helped me out here because this one year, Thomas was unable to do his usual presentation at Rutgers Day. So then he asked the Cognitive Science Club e-board members to like do the presentation for him. So we did. And that like helped initiate like my relationship with him in his lab. Like he then realized that like I am really interested in visual illusions, and I was hired into his lab after I graduated. So let me break this down some more. I'll talk about like my more specific projects in each of those labs. So in Steve's lab, I did my honors psychology thesis, which was that. Retinal structural alteration in chronic versus first episode schizophrenia spectrum disorders. If you want to read that for fun, for some reason, there's the QR code. is an optical coherence tomography study. So that means that I used like, where's my mouse? Here we are. So I was looking at like the back of the retina. By the way, can you guys see my mouse, or am I just like, okay, cool. So we were looking at the back of people's retinas, which has like really important stuff. The retina is like an outgrowth of the developing brain. So when you're like a little fetus, you're like a little floating brain, little floating eyeballs, they grow together. So you have like very similar neurotransmitters, a similar like layered structure, and the changes in the brain are paralleled in the eye, in the retina specifically. And the retina is also a part of the central nervous system. So it's important to study the retina as almost like, they call it a window into the brain, because it's like an easier way to check out how the brain is doing than like putting someone through a very expensive and costly MRI. So we use this machine in the corner. This is the OCT machine to scan people's eyes. Like it literally just flashes lights at their eyes, and then you get this like really colorful picture of a retina. Also over here. So the reason why we were doing this optical coherence tomography was because one of Steve's like previous papers found that people with schizophrenia have retinal thinning. So that's really not good. You don't want your eyes to get thinner. It could be like, it's like, because it's so like connected with the brain, it could be like a biomarker for problems in the brain. So then the question that we were trying to answer is like, at what point in schizophrenia do the retina start thinning? Because like we know that it happens during schizophrenia, but we don't really know when it starts. So that's where the first episode group and the chronic groups come in. So first episode schizophrenia just means like beginning of the disease, like the first couple of years when someone starts realizing that they're like developing symptoms of schizophrenia. And then chronic schizophrenia is, you know, they've had it for a couple of years already and they're well into the disease. So that's the two patient groups that we had, the first episode group and the chronic group. And then we also had two control groups that were age matched to those patient groups. So we found out through my study that the retinas of the chronic schizophrenia group are thinner than all of the other groups, which probably means that there is that like the retinal thinning is a result of the progression of schizophrenia. So we're not exactly sure like what like the exact source of the thinning is. Like it could be medical comorbidities that happen as you have like schizophrenia for a longer time. It could be the antipsychotic medications which cause like retinal thinning. Could be a ton of things. So we still don't really know. There still has to be a lot of research done on that topic, but at least now we know that the retinal thinning is happening later in the disease of schizophrenia and not at the very beginning. So that's what I did with Steve at Rutgers. By the way, I'm seeing like some, I think the chat's like blowing up, but I can't really see it. Sorry. I guess I'll just keep talking about Dr. Papathomas's work. So Thomas loves visual illusions. I don't know if you guys saw, but in like today's Center for Cognitive Science newsletter, he just got like, I don't know, he's like an editor or something now on the Journal for Visual Illusions. Very cool stuff. So I wrote it down too. Anyway, here's us at Rutgers Day with his huge like face that we had to lug around bush. That was really fun getting on a bus. So I do a depth inversion illusion with his lab, and do I have another? No. Okay, I'm gonna go and show you this video over here. Oh my God, please don't blast us. Okay, so what is this? So here we are, we're looking at a mask of a human face, and it's tortellini. The nose is like obviously the part of the face that is closest to the viewer right now, you. So it's concave. The mask is going to rotate as I play this video, and you'll see like a really cool illusion. So you're looking at the inside or concave side of the mask. The nose is still coming towards you, or at least that's what it seems like it's doing, even though you know that the nose is supposed to be the furthest point from you. So this is like a really freaky thing to look at. Again, it's still coming out towards you, even though it's supposed to be pointing away. So I'll leave that running as we keep going with the rest of this. People with schizophrenia are not able to see the illusion. So let me just make this clear. You are probably seeing the illusion right now. You're seeing the nose on the inside of the mask point towards you. It is still the furthest or the closest part of the mask to you, no matter if you're looking at the concave or the convex side of the mask. But people with schizophrenia do not see the illusion. Their brains are not tricked. So the reason why that is because like people who don't have schizophrenia will typically have like top-down processing happening where their brain realizes that like every time you've ever seen a face before, you've seen the nose being like the closest part to you. You've never seen someone with a face where their nose was just like inverted. So then your brain uses this top-down processing and applies it to this mask. However, someone with schizophrenia is not going to be able to apply that top-down processing. So they will always see the mask for what it really is. They're not going to see the illusion. By the way, don't worry if you are not seeing the illusion, you might just be sleep deprived or on drugs or something. Anyway, the question that we were trying to answer in the project is, will schizophrenia inpatients not see the illusion at the beginning of their hospitalization and then slowly start to see the illusion the longer they are hospitalized? So let's try to break that down a little bit. When a schizophrenia inpatient is hospitalized, they are at their most ill. So they're not going to have that top-down process happening. They're going to not see the illusion. But then as they're staying in the hospital for longer, they're going to get better with all of the therapy and the medications and being away from like whatever triggers they were experiencing back in their normal lives. So then as they're getting better, are they going to start seeing the illusion like someone who does not have schizophrenia? What's the answer? We don't know. We've collected data on 3 people. Next. I decided to move to Rochester with Dr. Steven Silverstein because he left Rutgers. Soon after he like hired me into his lab, like a couple months later, he was like, so I'm leaving. And I was like, oh no. But he actually invited me to go up to Rochester with him. He opened up a whole new lab over here, And we're doing pretty much the same thing, except instead of being called the Division of Schizophrenia Research, we are now CRAB. I'm a little crab. So we haven't done very much because I moved here in like end of January, and then coronavirus happened. So I've just been like writing papers, doing IRB stuff. I'll tell you about this like one main project that I've been doing, the review on visual hallucinations and schizophrenia, which I think we just submitted for publication. So I'm not going to go too deep into this because it is a lot. Before my paper, there were a couple of papers that were like trying to figure out how to like categorize schizophrenia and like the visual hallucinations that people experience in that, and like what the source, what could be like causing the visual hallucinations. So these previous papers came up with the three what do you call these, visual hallucinatory syndromes: the green one, the red one, and the purple one. So the green one is eye diseases and other like problems with the visual pathway. So people who are in this category, there are some like really interesting things that can happen. For example, there are people who have Charles Bonnet syndrome, which is essentially like they're blind, but they're still having visual hallucinations. Wild. How does that happen? I don't know. And then the second category of visual hallucinatory syndromes are these neurodegenerative diseases, such as Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's. Yeah. And then the last one is like all of these serotonergic issues that can be caused by drugs and other things. So my paper was suggesting that perhaps schizophrenia is some like combination of like all three of those syndromes, maybe more so the eye diseases and neurodegenerative syndromes, not so much the serotonergic syndrome, though there are possibly influences from all three of those. So that's that paper. I'll let you guys know once it comes out so you can do some light reading. What am I doing now? Suffering. I am really dying. I'm applying to my clinical psych PhD programs right now. There are like 14 schools that I'm applying to, and I've only done like half of their applications. They're all due December 1st. Wish me luck. I hope to get into a PhD program at some point because this is my third try. Kill me. The acceptance rates are single digits. So it's really rough. And I hope that once I get this PhD, I'll just dedicate the rest of my life to doing more schizophrenia and vision research. So yeah, this is just like a prelude to what's gonna come later. Questions? Also hit me up on LinkedIn. I am friends with too many random people and not actual friends. Did someone say something, or have I finally lost it?
I thought Ayan was going to say something, so I'll wait.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say thank you for presenting, but if you have an actual question, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for presenting. I thought it was like really good, and I love how you explained your research too. I was just curious, like, do you think the retina thinning has anything to do with like not being able to see illusions? Because I think wouldn't illusions be more to do with like how the brain works? But I don't know, because it's all visual, right?
You know, that's an interesting hypothesis. I haven't heard anything about that before, but I've also not done a lot of research into the like what could be contributing to the schizophrenic patients with schizophrenia not seeing the visual illusion. I think that the main thought in the field is just that there is some like top down, maybe bottom up processing issues, but not necessarily retinal contributions.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a quick question. Okay, so by any chance, may there be like in the future, we'll find out if there's like a correlation. Oh, hello. If there's a correlation between like retinal thinning and the onset of visual hallucinations or something, because the first thought that I had was, oh, retinal thinning, maybe perhaps the brain is trying to compensate and is producing visual hallucinations as a way of compensation. You know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just reading Oliver Sacks' book called Hallucinations. And I think somewhere in there he was saying that there are definitely people who have hallucinations who don't necessarily have like schizophrenia or any sort of psychotic disorder, but they still have visual hallucinations, and it could be caused by retinal thinning or like other similar things. So what I'm trying to get at is that people, when they are like deprived of sensory input, their brains can overcompensate and then create hallucinations. So yeah, it's possible.
So has there been like any research done in terms of like looking at especially in stages of like visual development when someone's younger, if there's a lack of stimulation, meaning there's like, I don't know, they grew up somewhere dark, I don't know, like they don't have a lot of visual stimulation, so they have like an increased chance of developing like you know, or they have an increased risk of developing like visual hallucinations later in life. Is there any like kind of case study for that?
I don't know. Good question though. I feel like yeah, definitely if I were to give a guess, I would say yeah, if you're deprived of visual input at a young age for really like no reason, like the rest of your brain is doing just fine. Yeah, the brain's going to be wondering like, why do I have the ability to sense visual perception and whatever, but then I'm not actually using that. So then it's going to make up its own visual stuff.
So does that mean like most blind people experience visual hallucinations, or is blindness more, it's like it has more to do than more to do with like the entire visual system kind of being a bit faulty rather than just the ability to perceive visual stimuli, right?
I think only like a small percentage of blind people have Charles Bonnet syndrome where they're having like visual hallucinations despite the fact that they are blind. Um, what was the second half of your question, or did I answer the whole thing?
Yeah, like you mostly answered the whole thing. I was just like, would the would blindness have to do with like just issues like with the retina or the ability to perceive stimuli, or is it more like involved, I guess, with the entire visual system as a whole, like going into the cortical regions, the optic nerve, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it could be the latter, definitely. Um, yeah, just like deficits in different parts of the visual pathway can cause different, you know, stuff happening.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that and also, I guess, ask. Um, I don't know if this is for all blindness, but I know that some types of blindness, the thing that's missing is like the actual conscious experience of sight, but there is still something firing in which somebody is like perceiving the stimuli. I think it's called blind sight. So like if people are you know want to point out, like if you say like, oh, point to the square, or point the square on this board, they're going to point to the square the majority of the time, like not just luck, even though they can't actually see the square or even know that they're actually guessing where the square is.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are so many different kinds of blindness, all just like a result of different dysfunction in the visual pathway or in the brain itself.
I'm really curious for like your research path and like how you have been getting like the research papers published and like how the process works, because I'm not really familiar with a lot of it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is actually something that I asked during my own undergraduate career, because in my first lab, which I didn't talk about at all, but I still really respect and love, Dr. Elias, the social emotional character development lab. So Dr. Elias was saying that he knew I was interested in a PhD. He suggested that I try to get my research published at some point because it is going to make me stand out. It's just like so difficult for undergraduates to get published. So then those who do have like a huge step up from all the other applicants. And then actually for many clinical psych PhDs, like you're not going to get accepted unless you have publications and presentations. So yeah, definitely pursue it. And half of it is luck. I got into a lab where my professor, Dr. Stephen Silverstein, he is, how do I say this? Like a paper machine. Like he just pumps out papers all the time. Like I checked out his 2020 papers. Keep in mind, we didn't do any studies. He had like 25 papers. How? What was he doing? So like you just have to make sure that, first of all, you find some mentor who is willing to help you in the paper publishing process, because that is just, I'd say it's impossible to do yourself. You just don't have the experience necessary to write a paper at like such a high degree. Like it's so scientific and it's so different from like, I don't know, what do you call that writing class that everyone has to take freshman year and everyone
Expos.
There you go. You know, you all took that, right? But it's not anything like a scientific paper. So yeah, find someone who will help you. And then it helps to like do a thesis. So like I did my psychology honors thesis my senior year. And then I had it published after I graduated. And other people like are able to do theses in the cognitive science major. And like, I'm not saying that it's guaranteed to get you a publication, but you can like pursue publishing it because you've already done all of that work. You made a whole like research study. You did every part of the data collection and like writing up the paper with some help from your very nice mentor. So why not get it published in some paper or some journal? It's going to be really good for your resume, and you might actually need to have a publication anyway, depending on like what grad school or career you're trying to pursue.
Oh, thank you. I just want to ask another question, like how much, like in your research labs, how much of like of your own voice did you have in those papers, I guess, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, that's something that I think I had like a pretty good say in like the papers that I wrote. Definitely for like my honors thesis, like that was very much me. That was like I did so much of the research for the research paper. So I was like first author for that. And what else have I published? I actually just had another paper come out that was like based on that OCT paper. but I was second author or something. The first author was this girl who's like my age. She's a medical student at University of Rochester. She did comp sci as her undergrad degree, which was a really interesting thing to like go from comp sci to med school and then do this like project on psychology. I don't know. So she was the one who like headed that project. She used machine learning algorithms to analyze the data from my OCT project. And then she tried to use that algorithm to like separate the participants into their actual like groups that I had claimed they were in. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So that's why I was second author, because I wasn't like really in charge of that. I'm not a comp sci major, can't do machine learning stuff to save my ass. And then I had the visual hallucination paper, which I'm like second author in because I don't know enough about like the biological mechanisms behind visual hallucinations, like all the dopamine, serotonergic, and cholinergic stuff that's happening there. So Steve really had to help me out. But that's like why it's so important to have a mentor to be there for you. Like you can't single author a paper at this point in your career, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Adriann, I have a question about your double major. So what made you choose both? Like, why did you double major and not choose one over the other?
In a sense, I kind of did choose one over the other. Like, I consider myself more of a psychology person than a cognitive science person. Sorry, Cog Sci Club. But I do think that like first of all, I chose psych because it's just something that I knew I'd been interested in for a while. I didn't know what cognitive science was until Dean Diamond told me like, hey, maybe you should look into this. So once I did look into it and I like made that list separating all of those majors in SAS, it turned out that psychology and cognitive science were one of the like two of like the 5 majors or something that were in my section that was for like majors I enjoyed and it was like possible for me to pursue. So psych I just always liked. I was like pushing down my whole life because of that whole stigma thing. Cognitive science, I think I chose that because I am very much like a jack of all trades kind of person. I really had a hard time picking my major because I have so many interests. And it felt like choosing cognitive science was like choosing 5 majors instead of just one. So that's like why I double majored. I also double minored because 2 majors just wasn't enough for me. I still wanted more. Double minored in music and health and society, which is like a sociology thing, but it's more like health centered sociology. I'm just really indecisive. Fun fact, I was the decision making specialty or whatever, the track in the cognitive science major. That apparently did not help me be any better at making my decisions.
I was just gonna ask actually, like, how did that? I know for the cognitive science major, it's like you end up having to take like every field, like it's like a class or two in every field. How did that like multidisciplinary knowledge help you with your, apart from the decision making, help you with your like career and like your life? Like how did that kind of influence you?
Yeah,
Much
that was actually really important for me to choose cognitive science as like my double major because much of my work is like neuroscience and perception stuff, which it's not like psychology wouldn't have given me like info on that, but I feel like cognitive science made me, you know, more interdisciplinary. I got that, I learned that stuff from so many like different lenses, and it helped to broaden my worldview instead of seeing it only from the field of psychology.
Anyone else have any questions?
I have a follow-up question, maybe a little bit about the mentoring and the paper. So like, did you take any classes for that were like specific for or more tailored to like writing research paper as like an undergrad? And then like, how do you go about like the mentoring? Because you keep saying mentoring, but I wasn't sure like how that works.
I already forgot your first question. Let's start with the second one and then ask your first one again later. So when I say mentor, I mean like Steve, Dr. Steven Silverstein. I consider him my mentor because he like helped me with the research process. And I also hope for him to be like my PhD mentor. Like I'm applying to the University of Rochester, and I hope that he would be the like professor in charge of like helping me get my PhD. If you don't know about the PhD process, when you apply for a clinical psych PhD, you choose one person who's going to be your mentor for the 5 to 7 years that you are doing that program. Did that answer your question? Also, what was your other one?
Yeah, sure, it did. So the other one was just like about writing research. So I know there's like how you were saying there are different styles, and I noticed there's like a couple offered by Rutgers. Like, did you take one that like was, you think that had helped you?
Yes. So in a sense, I guess the psychology lab courses were kind of helpful. I'm not talking about like the research labs. I'm talking like abnormal psych lab, sensation and perception lab. Those were the two that I had taken. They're supposed to help you with writing, you know, they're supposed to fulfill that Common Core thing. Do they do a good job of it? Not really. It gives you like, it's a really small like baby step into how to write a research paper. So in that sense, I think it's a good introduction. But I think that the course that helped me more was the honors psychology seminar, the like 400 level course that you have to take if you're doing the thesis in psychology. So actually the professor in charge of that honor seminar is Dr. McGann, or was Dr. McGann before he got promoted to like king of cognitive science. So he was very helpful because he was like such so nitpicky when reading our papers, and he explained it all pretty well. By the end of the seminar, every single person had written their introduction and their methods for their research paper. And then by the end of that school year, we had finished writing the results and the discussion paper sections of that paper by ourselves. I think that, yeah, that was super helpful. I would highly recommend that you do that honors thesis if you have the chance to. If you're not in psychology, I'm assuming the rest of you are in the cognitive science major, because why else are you here? I would highly recommend that you do the cognitive science major thesis, because you're going to get that same experience. Though I don't think there is like an honor seminar where they teach you how to write a paper. Like you kind of just need to learn by doing it and have your like mentor help you write the paper. So if I were to like pick what experience helped me to like learn how to write research papers the most, I would say it's like doing the paper and having my mentor help me write it. Not necessarily any of the courses, though the honor seminar was pretty good. Like, it was definitely most helpful for like Steve to tell me how to do things, because the courses still like water down the research papers some more so that it's like gradable. And it's like, yeah, it's just like more for school. Whereas when I wrote the paper with Steve, he was helping me write it for the purpose of publishing it in a scientific journal.
How do you go get into the honors seminar thing? Do you just sign up for it, or do you have to be like, hi, I wanna be in it?
Are you a psych major?
I am a psych major.
Okay, yeah, so you have to be a psych major. It's a 400 level course that you sign up, I guess, on like WebReg. But then you also need to send in an application of some sort, I think. This was like a year, almost 2 years ago or something. I'm like forgetting now. There is some sort of application process. And I do remember that like by the beginning of the semester, so like early September, you need to have your research proposal written up. It's like 5 pages, 10 pages, I don't know. And it was just like a summary of what you plan on doing in your study. You submit it to the department. I don't think they've ever rejected anyone. Like you can't really go wrong here. And that's how you get into the seminar. So it's important that like you're already in a lab prior to the fall of your senior year. Preferably you're in a lab and you've already started data collection for that study that you're submitting the proposal for. If you don't do that, like me, I joined Steve's lab in like August or something. The August before August of my senior year, whatever. So I hadn't really had that much experience in his lab. I had not done any data collection. I submitted the proposal and then I was like already 10 steps behind all the other, like my classmates who had begun long ago. So I know it's rough, I guess, to do that during COVID times, but good luck.
Man. Thanks though.
Yeah.
I have a question. So, how did you find a good mentor?
Yeah. So I guess part of it was luck. I didn't know that Steve was going to be so great before I got into his lab, but it turns out that he was amazing, and that was just my luck that I got into his lab. I guess if I were you and I were looking for like a good lab, I would talk to my friends who are in the lab and be like, so is this person, I don't know, like a good mentor? Are they present? Are they willing to like answer their emails in like a timely manner? Are they good writers? Like, do they publish often? But then there's no like formal way, I guess, to check if someone is a good mentor for you. Just word of mouth. Yeah, I guess that's all I can say.
All right, so we have like 7 minutes left, right? So if anyone has some last questions, we can definitely ask those, and if not, we can end the meeting in like 5 minutes early. Oh, Carl Costanza in the chat says, do you have any recommendations for someone interested in learning more about AI? Adrian, what is your take on this?
No. I don't do comp sci stuff, sorry. Yoni might know. Right, Yoni?
Yeah, I can send you some recommendations
Nice.
in the chat.
Yeah, Yoni actually in the Discord, he just posted in the, if you look in the general, are you on the Discord, Carl? Great.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. It's a great recommendation actually.
So he just posted in the AIDL chat. There's an AI school that NYU is running. According to him, it is a week-long winter course on AI, free and open to any undergraduate. So there you go.
NYU is a fantastic AI machine learning department. So highly recommend. It'll probably be like very well done. Adrian, how is Rochester?
Cold. It snowed today and yesterday. Also, I guess I can't really say too much about Rochester because I don't leave my studio apartment. So I assume it's pretty cool. Literally.
Is it just a university town? Is it a big city?
I don't know if I'd say it's like a smallish city. Like I think I can drive from one end of the city to the other in like less than a half hour. So I don't know, like maybe 15 minutes or something. There is definitely like a college presence because of how there's nothing happening in the city besides the university.
How does it compare to New Brunswick?
Oh, sorry, what?
How does it compare to New Brunswick?
New Brunswick is definitely livelier. And we also have that like as if either one of us are there anymore. New Brunswick has like that influence from New York. So like you have many more people like coming in and out of the city and like just more happening. And then Rutgers is like a humongous school. So we can't even compare that to University of Rochester, which is much smaller, much more insulated. Since no one like comes to Rochester for really anything, not since the day of Kodak, which was originated in University of Rochester. Recommendation for cognitive psychology. God, cognitive psychology stuff. Hey, Mao Fan, is this message for me privately, or can I answer it in this? Okay, cool. So Malfon asked me for recommendations for someone who's interested in learning more about cognitive psychology. So I think that like there are a couple of people at Rutgers who are pretty good at cognitive psychology stuff. I would definitely recommend to look in the psychology department as well as the cognitive science department because, you know, cognitive psychology. But I wouldn't say like any particular person is like good for you since I don't know what your specific interests are. But yeah, good idea. Take cognition, take all these classes, get to know your professors, and then like build these relationships with people because that like definitely helps to get you into a research lab at some point. Like that's why Cognitive Science Club was so helpful for me. It helped me to build connections. Like that networking, absolutely so important. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. If we have no more questions, I think this is a great place to end it off. Thank you so much, Adrian, for coming. That was really, really great. I learned a lot, especially the fact that the retina is part of the CNS. I did not know that. And I don't know. I feel like you kind of just like encouraged me, especially because I'm trying to go pre-med, so I'm very scared of what's about to happen. It's like
Should be.
like a sense of impending doom, like always. But I think you encouraged me, like it's okay to not know what you're doing and just kind of like keep moving forward. So I really appreciate that. So yeah, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks because you don't have a meeting next week. So yeah, thank you again.
Thanks for having me. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Adriann.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. Bye.
Oh, she left.
She left.